In the last video, we have seen strings as values resources, and in this video, we'll see dimensions as values resources. So, what are dimensions? A dimension may be the size of the text, or margin, height, width, or the placement of a control with respect to the four edges of the screen. So, whatever it may be. So, dimension. For the dimensions, we can use any of the following units of measurement: pixels, inches, millimeters, points, device independent pixels, or sometimes density independent pixels. So you can write them as dp or dip. Next, scale independent pixels. So these are the units of measurement we can use for dimensions, values, resources. We can access any dimension value using its own ID in both layout file as well as activity file. In layout file, so you can access a dimension like this, dimension resource like this, and in activity file you can access a dimension like this, r.dimen dot ID of the dimension. So for example, so in layout file you can access the dimension value easily just by mentioning the ID of dimension, but in activity file, so there is some strategy to access a dimension. So first of all, you need to specify the context. The context in the sense the current running object. So you can specify it as this dot get resources. So using get resources method, you can access the resources available in res folder. So this dot get resources in the sense you can access the resources available in res folder. Next, as we are going to access the dimension, so call the method get dimension. So for this method, you must pass the dimension ID. So whatever the dimension you are accessing into your activity file, so you need to mention the ID of that particular dimension. In this case, small underscore size is the dimension ID. So you can access this dimension. So use this strategy r.dimen dot small size. Now let's look at the project, so which is going to explain dimensions, values, resources. So I'm going to use the last project, which is values app. So for the creating and utilizing dimensions, values, resources. So I'm opening values app. By keeping the previous project as it is, so let me create a dimension resources in res folder. So actually in res folder, values, in values folder you must have dimens.xml as the resource file, but it is not available, so manually create it. So right click on values, new values resource file, dimens.xml. okay, now open it. By default you can see this small code, and let me create some dimensions resources like this using dimen tag. Successfully created two dimensions. The small size is 15 device independent pixels and large size is 20 points. Now let me modify the code. This is the layout file. So as usual, in text view I'm going to access dimension 1, that is small size, and text view, second text view, I'm not going to access the second dimension. So for this the corresponding activity code is going to be changed. So for the second text view, I'm not going to access the second dimension, that is large size. So for this I'm writing some code in activity file. Okay, let me modify the first text view. but this small size dimension is accessing here, is getting accessed here. Next, I'm going to change the activity code like this. Okay, before going to display the text, so I'm going to create a floating type variable, say size. I think in the code how to access the resources. This dot get resources. Sorry. Dot get dimension. Get dimension. Now what is the idea of second dimension, that is larger size, over next. So I'm accessing the second dimension, that is larger size, into size variable. Next I'm going to apply the size to the text what I'm going to display on the screen. So how can I apply? So using text view, object TV, so set text size. Text size. Now text size is available in size variable. That's all. Now let me run the project. This is the output. So this is hello world is being displayed in small size and menu settings in large size. That's all.